crucial for any organization, any company, and that's the topic of our discussion today. It's how do you acquire new members in the case of Toastmasters in your personal life, in your profession. I recommend you to learn how do you acquire a new customer because I emphasize customers don't stay with your organization for life. There is a term called churn. They take on, they go somewhere else. So you have to offset that churn. Churn is going down, right? You have less customers. In the case of Toastmasters, we have less members. We have to make an extra effort to gain new members. In the past, before 2020, we had so many guests, so many new applicants. We always grow our membership base, but times have changed. So we have to take a intentional approach. And in the presentation I'm going to be sharing, you will see that everybody participates and contributes to turning guests into members. With this, we can turn on the PowerPoint presentation. I'll walk you through, and Meltem will have the PowerPoint available to you. Please study the concept, and please email me with your feedback because we can always improve. Until now, as I mentioned, most of the clubs operate to acquire new members in their own way. But in this presentation, I am sharing a specific way to accomplish certain objectives. It's called placebo marketing, and I'll explain that in a couple of slides. But first of all, let's go to the next slide very quickly. Here's a chart for you, and I know that you all interested in learning. This chart by country is the number of years of education. And in the world, there's significant variance. So I always offer you the ideas, either you attend a college or master's, wherever you have taken your course last time, how do you advance yourself to the next level? And of course, through Toastmasters, you learn at every meeting. Why? Because there is a correlation between number of years of education and life satisfaction. I'm sure you know this, but I always emphasize when we're in a learning mode. Because learning for grown-ups is different than learning of young adults. Young adults, children, they learn because it's fun, but grown-ups want to learn because there is a problem to solve. So you have to emphasize the problem you need to solve. You need to be intentional for your perceptual filters to act in a way to receive the information. We'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is me. Most of you, we know each other. We're friends. We can go. But for Bushra, you can see that that's the Boğaziçi University campus. Okay, where I graduated from. All right, next one. Okay, so one back, please. At Toastmasters, we have a significant amount of what we call the organizational intelligence, organization capabilities, or institutional knowledge. We have all the resource libraries, volunteer organization functioning amazingly well. We have pathways. We have the learning management system. Here, I want to emphasize the word OFI, and I would like to ask if you please drop in chat one word. What is your understanding of OFI then? What is your understanding of OFI? Do you see the word OFI? The letters, three letters? I'm not hearing anybody or I'm not seeing anything in the chat. First time seeing it. Okay. Okay. Then let me explain. Those who have done work in the continuous improvement, Japanese management systems, OFI means opportunity for improvement. So it's a nice way of focusing on what needs to be improved instead of like thinking about problems. Well, because in the psychology field, it was determined that if we talk too much about opportunities, what's broken, what's not working, etc., then our mind shifts towards thinking negatively. Our goal is to actually create what is called psychological safety when we want to improve anything, and therefore we use the term opportunities for improvement. Here I have two opportunities. In the club growth, there's new clubs and new members, and in the second one, sustainability. But today we only focus on new members. So far, then please drop in the chat what's what is in your mind right now, because I explain the importance of learning, the importance of acquiring new members, and I explain the OFI concept. For you to be able to absorb the rest of the presentation here, I would like to hear what is your mental state? Are you excited? Are you engaged? Are you curious? Please drop in the chat one word only. Engage. I see engage. Okay. Keep it curious. Okay. That's good. That's good. Excited. Okay. Super curious. Anybody questioning? Committed? Okay. Okay. That's good. All positive mental states. That means that you. This is the biology of learning. When you're acquiring new and partially new information, your mental state needs to be constructive and productive. Otherwise, your mind is going to go somewhere else and you're not going to absorb much of the content. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so in our prior conversations with District 109 and Anatolia, we always talked about content and certain way of approaching solving problems. Also, I always emphasize, and that's a point I'm sharing with you, always want to look at some data. So what I did, I extracted data. If you look at the first column of the table, paid members, number of paid members as of June 30th, all these years. Uh, when you look at the 2019, you're 5,947. And when you look at the 2026 forecast, that's a forecast I came up with, 6,600. Overall, you're about like 10% over how many years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So in 7 years, 10%, that means approximately, I'm going to say like roughly maybe 1% cumulative growth, what is called annual cumulative growth. In my mind, yes, the years 2021, 2022, they were down years. And I think the overall district can improve on this point. of acquiring and turning guests into members. That's why we're going to go into the new member acquisition process. Next slide, please. Okay. Before we design and deploy any processes, we'd like to know what is known, who are involved people, what do we know, what is it that we don't know, what is that we want to overcome. I'll give you like 30 seconds. Please read this slide, and then I'm going to ask what is your understanding of the default mode network in one word?
Here,
Yeah, it's in both ways. It's called default mode network. That means what is the primary emotional state of the brain when we do anything in life? Is on the first paragraph. Actually, the word is on the at the bottom of the first paragraph. What does it say? The fear of the unknown. I think that the word has been used earlier today in the meeting. So what does it mean? When you have a guest, typically the guest is indecisive and fearful. I mean, the guest is not going to die or anything, but there's a level of discomfort. That's why we need to address. We address in the placebo marketing that fear of the unknown. If we don't, if the process doesn't address the fear, then we're not going to be able to convert as much as we can the guest to become a member because the guests are gonna not gonna feel comfortable and they're gonna leave. Okay, maybe we'll go to the next slide and we start looking at the process. So this is the over framework we call this, and then we're gonna go into details. So there's 4 steps. When you interact with the guests, you have to send personalized messages so that it demonstrates that you understand where they're coming from. The second one, guest receiving process. When you have a guest in your meeting, either in person or virtual, you need to create a, an approach that's consistent with reducing the fear in their minds. More important, number 3, you have to close the sale. You have to understand how the person is going to be using Toastmaster capabilities. And then But the overall, the most important part, in my experience, because I've used this approach for the last 10 months in the club that I'm in person in Colorado, we acquired 10 new members. And our conversion rate for those on sale, conversion rate is 50%. Traditionally, at Toastmaster, conversion rate is like 15%. Therefore, we kind of beat that conversion rate many times. So let's go over more details here, a couple of more slides, and and then see what's out there. I would like you to actually read this numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and ask me a question. How would you apply this to your club? Because at the end of the day, what is important that you establish a connection with the future member guest. So you have to inquire the guest's background. You have to connect with the guest uh, and ask meaningful questions. And then, like the number 4 is to provide some information what would happen when the guest becomes a club member. But all this in the placebo, like we treat the guest actually from the beginning as if they're already a member. That's the concept of placebo marketing. That means we don't treat them as, would you like to join, etc. We pretend when you join us, then we can actually you can actually participate in table topics and what it means to speak table topics, because 90% of the conversation in our lives is table topics. It doesn't takes 90 seconds. You know the term elevators speech. So because of time element, maybe I'm not hearing any questions or comments. Maybe we'll go to the next slide, Melton. Okay. In the second slide, you have to talk to the interact with the guest in such a way that, and I briefly explain that this is the actually where the placebo effect is taking place. When we want to emphasize, when we're in person or virtual meetings, then what we do, the process, the key person drives the process is VP of membership. But in interaction, you might have two or three, more than one guest anytime. Therefore, you need to engage other members based on their experience and based on the experience at Toastmasters. And you'll ask them, oh, I have this new member and she's or he's in sales. So you need to find somebody in social sciences. But if you have an engineer, say you have an electrical engineer who has a presentation to give in the next 6 weeks, and he's attending or she's attending Toastmasters, right? You need to connect that person with another engineer, because when people speak the same language, that fear level goes down. So you have to find what reduces the fear level, the common language, the welcoming, treating the guest as already as a member. Those are simple concepts, but as you know, the guest is this fearful status, emotional state, then you adjust your action accordingly. And then the next one here, there's a little bit more detail, but for this presentation, because of the time element, I don't see, we don't need to go more detail, but you can read this section. We use a number of questions. This is the closing the sale. If you're VP membership, if he or she's not experienced in closing sale, then your guests, you're gonna have lower rate of conversion of guests to members. There's no other way. So you have to be very active. You have to be, practice this. I know at the Toastmaster, we focus on, of course, table topics. We focus on the roles. We focus on the agenda. There's so many things. Unfortunately, most of the clubs that I analyze their data, their membership is not growing. District 109, it has a nice growth the last 3 or 4 years, that 8%, 10%, 6%. But still, this is another amazing opportunities for improvement. Again, I'm not gonna spend too time because it's gonna be overwhelming. Now, the last one, the onboarding, we changed this onboarding process just to increase immediate satisfaction of the new members. Sometimes new members don't connect well with the existing members, but we overcome that problem. We immediately set up a 30 minutes call with the new members and walk them through the systems like Toastmaster International, and you have other systems that where you manage the daily meetings. And then we provide all the new guests with the information about the icebreaker. So in that 30 minutes call, so for example, this afternoon, I have a call with a recent member. She signed up actually 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and she's receiving support on the icebreaker, and she's starting that It's really game changer. So with this, maybe let's look at the next slide. Okay, so here, reflections. I would like to ask you, just answer the number one question in the chat, please. Based on this presentation, and we tried as much as interactional, what's fresh in your mind? And specifically about placebo marketing.
Opportunity for improvement, I'll say.
Ah, there you go, Ofi. Opportunity for improvement. Yes. Why is it important? Because it puts our mind in a positive, constructive thinking. Therefore, we don't shut down other people's ideas as a reflex. Excellent point, Archibald. Who else? Yeah, please talk, tell me, or just write. Yeah, maybe we talk. Yes.
Maybe like about the placebo marketing, like the reaching the right also creating the right emotional state for the target person or the people.
Yes. Knowing that guest is coming to a place he doesn't know, she doesn't know the other our guests, our members, right? How would you do? Go to a meeting online, there's there 15 other people. I would be frightened, right? It's normal. And then a different we're learning, but it's all specific to Toastmasters. Once we learn the process that prepare speeches, Toastmasters, there's a significant amount of information a guest needs to absorb. Excellent point, Busha. That was you, right? Okay, who else? Okay, so Ruth Prentice texted here. So I was reminded of the feeling I had the first time, right? It was the walking into my first meeting. I assumed that I wasn't as proficient as the members. Treating me as a member would have been a relief. Do you see that? That's absolutely right. And then we can see in the body language, we can see in the face. So, therefore, vice president of the membership needs to really understand a little bit body language. Are they like pulling back a little bit? Are they a little bit blushing their face? This is the guess, right? With this, I'd like to ask you any questions, any comments, and I think that I will type my email if you want to.
Yeah, I have a question,
Yes,
Burak,
please. Yeah,
on the you're making the prospect or the lead
yes,
feel like they're already a member.
yes.
How do we prevent the case or situation where they may feel like they're being rushed?
Uh-huh.
Because sometimes if you feel rushed, you're like, oh, okay, this is a trap or is a scam. Is it, you know,
Yeah,
I want to prevent that situation. How can I go about that?
that's a good question. I'm going to first give you an answer. 4 months ago, we signed up a guest at the first meeting. What do you say about that?
Perfect execution. Very.
Haha. Because I have a document. If you're interested, give me feedback or I'll share with you. I have a document, frequently asked questions by guests.
Oh,
I train myself. So the question that the gentleman asked me was this: Barack, that's a great organization. I'm going to practice, I'm going to learning, etc. I love the ambience, the social side, but how do you guys memorize a speech? I said, here, I'll tell you. You memorize the opening, you memorize the closing, and you tell a story from your own life. You don't have to memorize anything else. You know your life story. The gentleman said, okay, I don't have to wait. I sign up right there. Mostly people don't want to be rushed because they don't have clarity in their minds. You have to like the close to sale process. You have to ask questions to clarify their purpose. Why? You have to elevate the importance of how important it is for their lives to practice public speaking. They don't even know the details. They just heard about it. But there are some people you see by the body language. So I always say, if you feel like you need more time, you need to fill up your subconscious mind. Welcome to be our guest at the next meeting and lower your voice. Practicing Toastmaster skills in closing the sale. And this is not the vice president membership. Uh, I work with 4 or 5 people because I know, for example, we have a district champion. I there's Allison recently and she told me I had to deliver a keynote speech in 2 weeks. Who do I connect her with? Our recent district champion of humorous speech. Other times, here's Cameron Matson. He's a data scientist. He's 28 years old. I connected him with the electrical engineer, Austin, and he asked me at the end, how do I become a member? I didn't ask anything. This is in my mind, operations are very, very important. Okay, you have to deliver the promise of the organization, in this case, Toastmaster International, but acquiring new member is the hardest thing to do. Okay, any other questions, comments? Well, thank you. Then I turn over to you.
Burak Hocam, chat, we have one question from chat, please.
Let me see. Chat. Okay. One of my clubs is starting to have too many members. That one is currently taking the opposite approach. Members are valuable there. Guests are not yet us. There are plenty of other clubs there. Need more members. Yeah, it's good problem to have. If you have too many members, then in this case you can be more selective. It's like, some companies are they have to think twice before they acquire a new member. But also you can take your old club, you have 30 members, 35, 40 members, you create an advanced club. There's some practical and operational solutions to it. Here, if you look at by district and globally, membership has declined and it did not recover. That's my point, that you had to, if you leave alone member guest conversion to members as a as it was for the last 4 or 5 years or 15 years, it needs to be more intentional. It needs to have a process. It needs to have a metric. It needs to have this type of partnership within the club to acquire new members. All right. No more questions. Thank you for